This is a disclaimer. You're welcome. This has been one of, if not the most requested video on my channel. Originally, I wanted to do a top 10 best post-movie Spongebob's list, but it was too weighed down by episodes from seasons 4 and 5. So I thought it'd be a lot better to just give seasons 4 and 5 their own list, and give seasons 6 through 8 their own list, so it didn't seem so outweighed. Also, a lot of people got the impression that I can't stand modern SpongeBob, based off of a comment I made in my top 10 best pre-movie SpongeBob's episodes list. But I don't hate modern SpongeBob. I think it's got a bunch of fine episodes, and the comment I made was more meant to be high praise to pre-movie SpongeBob, not a negative remark on modern SpongeBob. So I think it's time to show you guys how much I really do like some of these modern SpongeBob episodes. And I think it's time to give it its due. It goes without saying that I won't include any special episodes, like Dunces and Dragons, Have You Seen the Snail, and Friend or Foe, for example. But I will get to the specials eventually. Anyway, here's my list. Enjoy! Number 10. Shell of a Man. I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign that I'm kicking this list off with the Mr. Krabs-centered episode. But either way, there's no denying that this is an absolutely enjoyable episode. This episode is about Mr. Krabs shedding his shell before a reunion with some of his old Navy buddies. And this devastates Mr. Krabs because he was the toughest one in his group. In fact, he was called Armor Abs Krabs. Why do they call him that, you ask?
Wow! My entire arm disintegrated!
I still got it.
That answer that? Great, let's move on. So SpongeBob ends up going in Mr. Krabs' old shell and poses as Mr. Krabs for the Navy reunion.
Okay, boys, let the SS party drop anchor right here.
Now for me, what I like a lot about this episode is Mr. Krabs' Navy buddies and SpongeBob trying to act tough. The Navy buddies are so enjoyable and so memorable and so funny, and SpongeBob saying stuff like this in this tough-sounding voice.
Like pineapple, I live in one. Me supply of bubble soap was dangerously low. Fire the torpedoes!
That's just fucking gold right there. As is common with most of these episodes, however, there's that liar revealed part of the episode, and usually that would kill the episode. But the way this episode handles it is really good. Mr. Krabs reveals himself and explains what happened, and his Navy buddies still name him the toughest guy in the Navy for admitting what had happened to him. And his Navy buddies also reveal that all of them have been hiding something as well that they lost at an old age. And everyone has a good laugh about it.
Look at that, Mr. Krabs. Your Navy buddies all had something to hide.
This is a really fun, entertaining, and easy to watch episode. And I salute it.
At least my shell will grow back.
Number 9. The Lost Mattress. God, what is up with mattress-centered episodes being so fucking awesome? This episode is about SpongeBob and Patrick wanting to buy Mr. Krabs a new mattress, and Squid reviews it as them kissing up to Mr. Krabs. So when they do get a new mattress from Mr. Krabs, Squidward takes all the credit for it, and Mr. Krabs attacks him because it turns out that Mr. Krabs' old mattress has all his money in it. And then Krabs goes into a coma, and Squidward is threatened with jail time if they don't get the mattress back.
It was SpongeBob's fault. Getting Mr. Krabs a new mattress was his idea.
Not so fast. This card says, this was all my idea. Love, Squidward.
Yeah, serves you right. Now here's the first thing I want to say about this episode. Squidward is getting tortured throughout this whole episode, and he totally deserves it. Everything that's happening to him, he's bringing onto himself, and this is how you do this kind of stuff right. An example of this is when Squidward sent SpongeBob and Patrick into the dump where Squidward sent the old mattress to distract a vicious guard worm while he retrieves the mattress, and it's clear he intends on taking full credit for getting the mattress back while letting SpongeBob and Patrick get mauled by the guard worm. But instead, he ends up getting attacked by the guard worm himself because his plan backfires, and it's totally deserved.
Oh, I give up.
Also, this episode is absolutely hilarious. SpongeBob and Patrick's scenes together at the mattress store and at the junkyard are so entertaining.
How many do you think there are?
10.
Cool.
And Mr. Krabs is in a coma for most of the episode. I mean, come on, that would make most of the episodes with Mr. Krabs in it better. Definitely a phenomenal episode, and there's still 8 more to come. Number 8. Spy Buddies. Well, I'm a sucker for a good spy episode, and this episode is no exception. This episode is about SpongeBob and Patrick being sent on a mission to spy on Plankton because he's been inactive for a month. So SpongeBob and Patrick they steal spy gadget from Sandy in order to do so.
What do we do now, Patrick?
Hey, look at that! Patrick actually had a smart moment. Okay, so just the very idea of SpongeBob and Patrick being spies opens up a lot of comedic opportunities. And it seems like the writers really understood that, as they seem to take advantage of everything they could have done.
If you'd like to make a call, please deposit 25 cents.
That's actually a really funny and very adult joke right there.
This looks like a job for Patrick Star Laser Pants!
Man, who would have thought you could get so much material out of Patrick's ass? Speaking of that, Patrick's laser pants end up destroying the chum bucket, so Plankton declares war on the Krusty Krab, resulting in the Krusty Krab being destroyed as well, and Plankton ending up with the secret formula. Only to reveal that Plankton is actually Krabs, and Krabs was actually imitation Krabs being controlled by Plankton. And it turns out this was all a bet between the two of them.
Now pay up.
Here you go, Eugene. $1.
Alright, so I know a lot of people don't personally enjoy the ending, and I admit I can see why. But honestly, I really enjoyed the ending. I'll admit the whole Plankton Mr. Krabs bet does seem a little weak, and they maybe could have been a little bit more creative with it. But I laughed really hard at the constant identity reveals, because not only were they funny to me, they seem to be a nice little wink to how a lot of spy movies seem to end, with someone turning out to have not have been who you thought they were the whole time. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Overall, this episode's writing for the most part was very clever. I mean, some of the spy references they throw in are great, like the James Bond reference they make and the Mission Impossible reference.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Hey, they even throw in a great line from Patrick, just like they did a lot in pre-movie SpongeBob. So, yeah, to me, this is a pretty damn good episode, and it's really entertaining. This review will self-destruct in 1 second. Number 7. Krabs à la mode. This episode is just littered with memorable moments and enjoyability. It's such a fun episode. This episode is about Plankton sabotaging the Krusty Krab in a seemingly ingenious way. He turns the thermostat down and basically freezes it. And because Mr. Krabs is so cheap with the thermostat, he refuses to raise the temperature because he thinks the thermostat is set to what it's usually set to.
There's icicles hanging from the ceiling.
I don't care if Santa Claus and Jack Frost are having ice cream cones.
Now you would think this would be a problem for any restaurant in any other episode, but SpongeBob ends up making it benefit the Krusty Krab by turning it into a skating rink. And, God, that's fucking creative. Like, really, that's very out of the box and very ingenious.
I'm selling twice as many patties and I don't even have to cook them.
Okay, in all fairness, the frozen floor has been done before in Tom and Jerry. In fact, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the inspiration for this from Tom and Jerry. But in that episode, it's used a lot more for slapstick. Which is fine. I mean, it does seem ideal for slapstick. But this episode uses it more to make the whole Plankton still in the Krabby Patty formula thing feel kind of fresh and new, and it works because in this case, the plan's not failing because Plankton fucked up, or because the plan was bad and doomed from the start. It's a legitimately smart plan that's only failing because SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs turn it around to benefit them, even though you wouldn't think they'd be able to. And that's really fun to watch. Also, they got a lot more creative with this gag. Not in a slapstick way, but in an ideas way. Since the Krusty Krab is now an ice rink, Mr. Krabs also offers Zamboni rides for $1 a pop, and rents the Krusty Krab out to the local hockey team to practice with, on top of still selling Krabby Patties, either as skates or as food. I mean, that's really clever. Like, it's actually impressive that they got so much humor out of a frozen Krusty Krab.
I freeze his place solid and he turns it into an ice rink.
Plankton still tries to take advantage of the frozen Krusty Krab by stealing a Krabby Patty. But because he tries to steal a Krabby Patty that the hockey team was using for a puck, it leads to a really enjoyable hockey scene before Plankton hijacks the Zamboni. Okay, I gotta play this clip now.
Tell me where your fucking boss is, or you're gonna die! In 5 minutes!
Phew, glad I got that out of my system. Well, Plankton burns out the Zamboni and then reveals that he fucked with Mr. Krabs' thermostat and does this. Now see, Plankton could have easily won right here, but no, he had to get cocky and the tables get turned on him. Yeah, serves you right for getting egotistical, you little pest. All in all, though, this is an awesome episode. It's clever, it's funny, it's entertaining, and it's got some of the best ice humor of all time. Something maybe Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin could have used.
I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
Fuck you, Mr. Freeze! Number 6. The Donut of Shame. Definitely one of Patrick's best episodes. It's about Patrick taking a donut that he thinks belongs to Spongebob, and he actually feels guilty about it. Yeah, Patrick feels guilty. That is such a nice thing to see, because, yeah, even though this was only a Season 5 episode, and the worst of Patrick hadn't been seen yet, Patrick was still having his moments where he was kind of unlikable, and seemed to not care who he hurt. But this episode shows him actually caring about his best friend, and regretting possibly hurting him.
SpongeBob's doing it! I ate it!
That is so rare nowadays. I mean, after how Patrick has been, it's satisfying to see him given an actual conscience and act like he actually knows what he's doing is wrong. And some of the things he chooses to do with this donut, I mean, they're hilarious and kind of creative.
The attic! Wait, I don't have an attic.
And it's also very satisfying at the end to see Patrick break down and apologize for what he did, only to find out SpongeBob gave the donut to Patrick as a birthday gift, and Patrick still shares it with him. I mean, yeah, it's disgusting at this point, because, I mean, yeah, but it's still a nice gesture, and it's definitely the kind of Patrick I like to see.
Pretty good, huh?
Number 5. Patrick's Smart Pants. Look at that! Another good Patrick episode! Now what I really enjoy about this episode is that, while the last one gave Patrick a conscience, this one gives Patrick a brain. After an accident playing tag, Patrick's brain ends up working, and he ends up becoming the smartest person in Bikini Bottom.
Look at them, these graceful, stoic creatures of the deep.
See, something like this can either turn out really annoying or really funny. And because they waited until Season 4 to do an episode like this, and you got so used to Patrick being stupid, seeing him like this ends up being really funny. Patrick also ends up becoming very egotistical because of his new intelligence, and feels him and SpongeBob shouldn't be friends anymore. And it's really kind of sad to see poor SpongeBob's reaction to that.
Think fondly of me, Mr. SquarePants.
Goodbye, Mr. Best Friend.
Patrick ends up driving everyone else away, however, and starts to realize that even though he's smart, he still feels empty and begins to miss SpongeBob. So he tries to figure out why he and SpongeBob drifted apart, and this leads to some really clever humor as well. Like, for example, this scene here.
What's different? What?
See, when I first saw this, I thought Patrick was still trying to figure out what had changed, and jumped to the conclusion that it was because he was bald, and once he grew his hair, he realized that wasn't it, so he ripped it off. Well, actually, Patrick made this whole potion to cure baldness just because he wanted to rip his hair out from the stress he was suffering. That's a fucking clever-ass joke. He finds a cure for baldness and uses it just to express his stress. It's subtle, but it's really goddamn funny. And when Patrick does realize how he became smart, the conclusion he comes to is honestly really nice.
Are you sure you want to give up being smart and sophisticated to be my friend again?
Knowledge can never replace friendship. I prefer to be an idiot.
I like that message. I really do. I mean, there's something about the fact that Patrick is giving life advice that seems to make it stick more and be a lot more effective. And one thing I never noticed about Patrick is that, yes, while he's a complete idiot and he can be a complete asshole, he seems like a genuinely happy character despite not being smart. So it's kind of like the saying, ignorance is bliss. And in my opinion, there's no character that sums that saying up better than Patrick. Gotta give credit where it's due here. This is one of the finest Patrick Star episodes.
I was only trying to help.
I don't need your kind of help, Mr. Know-It-All. I liked you better when you were a barnacle head.
Number 4. Skill Crane. This episode is actually very basic, yet it's still really funny. It's about Mr. Krabs getting a claw machine for the Krusty Krab, and Squidward wants to win a prize. Squidward at first thinks it's stupid, but the second he almost wins a stuffed animal, he does this.
Did you see that, SpongeBob? I almost got that on my first try.
SpongeBob takes over, and he's really good at it, always winning a stuffed animal and further feeding Squidward's obsession, straight to the point where Squidward becomes completely addicted to it.
Just once. Please, oh please let me win one time.
Squid, I think you have a problem.
Also, Mr. Krabs knows that Squidward is addicted and feeds his addiction even further.
I took the liberty of turning your paycheck into quarters, just in case you want to, I don't know, do laundry or buy a soda or...
And while you would think that seems cruel, Squidward is so arrogant about the machine and so sure that he's some kind of crane master that he basically gets what he's asking for. SpongeBob finally teaches Squidward how to win at the skill crane, and Squidward goes on a fucking rampage, rubbing everyone's faces in it.
You're yucking in the presence of a winner! Winner, winner, winner! Winner!
Oh my god, yeah, see what I mean by he kinda deserves it? Also, he teases a kid who loses at one point. I mean, come on, dude, that's just low. Serves you right, Squidward. Squidward's addiction gets even worse when he sees a construction crane and hijacks it, resulting in him destroying the construction site. And then the construction workers put Squidward in his place.
Just where do you think you're going, Crane Master?
You ain't going anywhere.
There's a lot of great, timeless humor in this episode, and it's really impressive to see how much they could do with something so basic and how much humor they could get out of it. One of the better written and better executed modern SpongeBobs out there.
I'm a winner, everybody! You hear that?
Number 3. Goo Goo Gas. Ironic that Squid Baby would turn out to be nothing more than a fetish episode, whereas Goo Goo Gas turned out to be a legitimately hilarious, well-done episode revolving around adult babies. In this episode, Plankton creates a gas to turn Krabs into a baby because he thinks if Krabs is a baby, he'll be unable to stop Plankton from stealing the Krabby Patty formula. Well, yeah, that's actually a fucking great idea, and it makes perfect sense.
He's a little bigger than I imagined.
But Plankton ends up getting caught by SpongeBob the first time, and runs out of gas the second time. And the third time, well, Plankton ends up making senior citizen gas. And by the way, if you thought old Eddie was hilarious, wait till you see old SpongeBob and Krabs.
I remember when a quarter used to cost a nickel.
He's got the Krabby Patty. Catch him.
Catch who?
Oh, didn't I? You kids get off my lawn.
Yeah, that's another thing about this episode. It has some really hilarious and memorable lines. I think my favorite would probably be this one.
What was that, Sonny?
It'll take more time to explain than you have left.
The climax of this episode is so fucking epic as well. Plankton goes on a spree of turning everyone in the Krusty Krab into a baby, and not only is it intense, it's fucking hilarious. And this is also where they use their absolute best baby-centered humor.
Put me down! Ow! Stop it! I'm an adult!
There's just something about the fact that Plankton, who is kind of immature himself, is now the only grown adult in the whole place, and he's getting manhandled the way he is by babies. That just adds to this episode's enjoyment. I really enjoy this episode. I think it's very entertaining, hilarious, and a little bit epic. And I also find it to be one of the more memorable ones. What the fuck went wrong here? Number 2. Roller Cowards. Remember what I said about Sailor Mouth being the most relatable pre-movie SpongeBob episode? Well, I think Roller Cowards is the most relatable post-movie SpongeBob episode. I mean, there are a lot of people who either have or know someone who has a fear of riding big roller coasters. And this episode does a great job capturing that fear. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick's favorite amusement park, Glove World, gets a brand new roller coaster, and it's fucking intense.
It's painful.
Patrick and SpongeBob want to ride it in the morning, but then they both get scared. However, because they don't want to disappoint each other, they hide how they feel.
The fiscal pain sure sounds...
Really, really scary. I mean funifying. I mean hortastic. I mean funnable. Fun. Really, really fun.
Yeah, really fun.
In order to avoid the other one figuring out that they're scared, they keep talking each other up about how brave they are, and while getting food, each of them try to convince themselves to be brave for the other, and it's fucking hilarious how they do that. Like, SpongeBob actually argues with an ice cream cone, and Patrick's reflection insults him, so Patrick lays him out.
I thought we settled this the last time.
I'll quit it! I'll quit it! I'll quit it! I'll quit it!
All of that is great, and it's really hard not to relate to them, because this isn't just how people who are scared to face roller coasters act. This is how people who are scared to face anything act. They'll either completely put it off, or they'll try to convince themselves that they're not even scared, when they very clearly are. There's also all these things that feed into their fears that only makes it harder for them to face riding that roller coaster, which only makes it even more enjoyable when they both get on the ride and conquer their fears together.
Please wait until the car has come to a complete stop. And stop crying.
We did it! We conquered our fears!
We stopped crying.
This episode is really a classic in my opinion. The plot is awesome, the writing is clever, and the jokes hit bullseyes, either by being incredibly inventive or incredibly relatable. Definitely one of the greatest modern SpongeBobs I've ever seen.
What are you looking at?
Now, interestingly enough, I found enough episodes from these 2 seasons to make an 11 through 20 list out of. And I gotta say, looking back on it, these episodes were pretty damn good. And even though SpongeBob would lose its touch later on, it was still nice to see they still had it in them. But let's reveal the number 1 best seasons 4 through 5 episode, and, in my opinion, the best post-movie SpongeBob episode right now. Number 1. Krusty Towers. Oh yeah, shocker, isn't it? Well, what can I say? Krusty Towers is so goddamn good. It's entertaining, it's funny, it's satisfying. It combines Squidward getting tortured with Squidward getting legit payback, which is just so fucking awesome. It's basically the Band Geeks of post-movie SpongeBob. Mostly everyone will either consider it the best or they'll put it in the top 3. Me, I put it at number 1 because it's one of the most well-executed SpongeBob episodes of all time.
I'll need some help with my bags.
How can you have bags? You just found out this is a hotel.
This is a hotel?
Now, apparently this episode was supposed to be a Season 3 episode, but it got pushed back to Season 4. And, yeah, that definitely shows. This feels so much like a classic pre-movie SpongeBob episode. This episode is about Mr. Krabs making a hotel because he feels he can make more money out of it. Patrick ends up checking into the hotel, and Mr. Krabs works Squidward incredibly hard to cater to Patrick.
What's the matter? Afraid of a little manual labor? I'm Squidward, and I have to work for a living.
I mean, Mr. Krabs is an asshole, no doubt about it, but it's worked out so well to where you can actually laugh about it. And not only that, Patrick is making Squidward miserable as well, but you don't get a malicious vibe from it because everything Patrick is doing to Squidward, he's only doing because Mr. Krabs keeps telling Patrick that Squidward will do whatever Patrick wants.
A bubble bath? Why would I give you a bubble bath?
Well, because Mr. Krabs said you would.
Patrick also has some really funny moments in this episode. Case in point...
I didn't know there'd be a test. I didn't study.
All you have to do is write your name.
Oh, okay. Done.
Squidward finally puts his foot down, and then he turns the tables on Mr. Krabs, and it's all done perfectly. The revenge Squidward gets after all he went through is great, because it's done at the same level that Krabs did to him, and there's nothing more hilarious than watching someone get a taste of their own medicine.
Here's your homemade cookies.
These don't taste anything like Mom used to make.
Well, how did your mother make them?
How should I know? Ask my mother.
And not only that, it's really rare in SpongeBob to see Mr. Krabs get legitimate comeuppance, or to see Squidward get legitimate payback, and this episode has both of those.
Perfect!
This room is exactly the same as when we started!
Nothing like getting back to the basics.
So, yeah, I've gone on enough about this episode. I not only consider it the best post-movie SpongeBob episode, I consider it one of the top 10 best SpongeBob episodes of all time.
Come on in, the water's fine.
Well guys, that's it for this list. I know I've been pretty hard on modern SpongeBob, so it was pretty fun to look back at the good episodes for a change. I will do a top 10 SpongeBobs from season 6 through 8 sometime in the future, but I don't want to make those too close together. So I'll probably do a couple of other reviews in the meantime. But until then guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.